today I'm going to look at creating a Vangelis-inspired Blade Runner soundtrack sound, or a sound that would sound nice in a Blade Runner soundtrack, should you be in a position to need to do that, or similar kind of vibe for synthwave, vaporwave kind of synth string sounds. So let's have a look at how it created it. I'm going to go and grab the instrument analog from the instrument section and have a listen to that. I'm going to make sure that we've got the musical keyboard on there, using X and Z to drop it down octaves. Z to drop it down an octave. There we go. And let's start. Make sure that the string sound is based on the sawtooth waveform. I'm going to pop this one up an octave. And then automatically or immediately after that, go and find this parameter, which, as you can hear, creates octaves beneath that. So I've got an octave up, one at 0, and I'm going to take this one an octave down. So we've got 3 octaves effectively happening there. I'm not going to use the octave, the sub oscillator. Fattens it up nicely. Not going to use the sub oscillator on this one because I think when I'm playing low chords, it's going to fall apart a bit. Next thing to do in order to emulate the sound of drifting analog synthesizer oscillators, just detune it. I know this is not drifting. That's a static detune, so let's create a drifting detune. First of all, using LFO1, enabling that doesn't do anything when you just switch it on. Going to leave it on sine wave, but it does do something once we decide to modulate a parameter with it. And you can hear the pitch being modulated up and down there. We only want a little bit. Nice. I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom oscillator, oscillator 2 using LFO2. Going to turn it up a little bit faster and change it from sine wave to noise. There's 2 noise sections, there's 2 noise oscillator for the LFOs. One enables the noise to jump around the oscillator to jump around to random values, but this one, on the other hand, ramps up between random values rather than stepped progression. We're going to use that one to modulate this. I'm happy for it to be perhaps a little bit more pitchy than the end sound will be. So I know it sounds a little bit we're getting into seasick kind of status here at times, but that's all right. We're gonna deal with that in a moment. Let's go to the master section, volume here, and click on the Unison. This is going to create extra voices. I'm going to go for 4. If I push it all the way up, I get an octave above and an octave below. Phantom of the Opera, eat your heart out. Around here is a nice place to leave it. I'm going to change voices from 8 to 32 because we're going to have quite long tails to this sound. So in order to make sure that we've got enough voices in the synthesizer, we'll go to 32. Error correction. This is not error correction. This is error introduction. This is going to create, and you'll see this when I add the tuner, Command F tuner, hit enter twice, adds it there. I hit the same note. You'll notice that it's not really playing the same pitch twice. That's at 100%. Tuning errors, 50%. A little bit less dramatic. The last pitch artifact we're going to introduce is with the vibrato. Turn it all the way up. We'll hear a very, very fast and quite a deep modulation to the pitch. Let's use this to set the onset. This will mean that exactly 1 second after the onset of the sound, we will hear the vibrato start to come in. I'm going to change it so that the vibrato fades in nicely over a second. Starts out okay and then goes a bit wobbly, too wobbly. So let's just drop this. I'm going to add some errors to this so it's not a uniform modulation. Just create some instability in that sound, which is great when we're trying to emulate those analog synthesizers of yesteryear. Filter. Got it set to low pass 24, quite a steep low pass filter. Nice harmonic distortion there on the resonance. There is a drive setting here for the filter. I'm going to switch it off. And then, in order to recreate this sound of a string section, which we would have a slow onset of a bowed instrument like this, I'm going to leave that full as fast as it can go, and I'm going to control that by changing the attack of the filter. So we go from an inaudible filter sweep to a very audible one over 15 seconds. Maybe a bit shorter. Then we hear it, once it gets to this high point, the decay sets how long it takes to drop down to this sustained portion of the sound. The sustained portion of the sound is set to 0.5, which means that the sustained section will not be at 713 Hertz. It will probably be at half of that. And it takes this long for it to drop down. So we go up, down, stay here. I actually want this to be a bit higher. And my release time, a bit longer. And I will actually manipulate the amplitude, the ADSR, to have a longer release. And then here, a bit long in the release state. Bit longer. Yep. So the filter's taking, even though the decay of this is almost completely gone, it's only a 1 second or thereabouts time. We can still have the filter modulating back down to a point below 713, according to how long we set the release time. Not too much else to do in the filter section. One last change. The key, this is a beautiful parameter, and what it does is it shifts the corner frequency of the filter according to how low or how high you're pushing a note on the keyboard. So higher notes have a higher sounding frequency. Around 2 to 3, this is pretty good. So it's automatically modulating the sound of the frequency or the corner frequency of the filter, depending upon which note you're hitting on the keyboard. Higher notes will modulate this higher, lower notes will modulate it lower. So a nice little parameter. I'll introduce the noise section. It's just a noise generator. If I turn the two oscillators off, you can hear what it does. It's going straight to the filter section, so the filter is basically carving out and controlling the ADSR for this. I don't want it to be as pronounced as this, and I can adjust another high-pass filter to color this. I'm going to leave it open until I hear it in context with the other oscillators. I won't know exactly the tone to go for. Not bad. Let's put up higher in case it gets really ear bleeding. And I'm really just looking to use this to kind of grab this filter some high frequency content that will just make it more pronounced what it's doing. And when I add a reverb after it, that'll also excite the high end in the reverb as well. Let's do that now. Add two more devices, Saturator and Reverb. Not the hybrid reverb in 11, but the standard one that's been around in Echo for forever in Ableton. Just going to push this one up. This is one of those plugins or devices that makes things sound better. Make sure you've got it right. Click, turn to high quality. Without it, adds thickness, adds more harmonics, makes it sound better. The reverb, as I was saying, older reverb units, the AMS reverbs that were used in the 80s and 70s, didn't have particularly high fidelity input processing or input conversion rather. So we're going to try to recreate that 8-bit, 12-bit input by just filtering out all the low end. When I say low end, I also mean top end. I'm going to use the low. This is going to stop the decay of the low frequencies or reduce the decay. It's set to 0.5. So if I've got my decay time set to 1.2, these frequencies will actually only ring out for half of that time. I just don't want to get too much build-up of bottom end stuff. It's a mono sound going into a stereo reverb, so let's turn the stereo effect up. Just try and create some stereo interest, and the chorus will help do that as well. Increase the time. Going to turn the chorusing on or the modulation on for the early reflection part of the sound too. Last thing I'll do here is move the pre-delay so that there's a little bit of delay from the onset of the sound to the onset of the reverb. Just to divide the two, make it a little bit clearer, the reverb. Just bring the vibrato down, it's still a little bit wobbly. Detune. That's nice, a bit more stable there. Now that I've got this all happening, I'm going to click on the first header, shift click on the last one and go to Group or Command G on a Mac, Control G on a PC. Opening up these parameters over here, making sure that they're all lit. I am then going to assign multiple parameters across to these macros so that I can control them more easily without having to delve back into all of these devices. First one will be the brightness, the treble, and the resonance. We'll go to the macros 1 and 2. I'm going to grab the attack, send it to 3, the decay to 4, sustain to 5, and the release to 6. Then from there, I'm only going to use the sustain and the release from the actual envelope generator on the analog device. So now let's go rename these. Command R, low pass filter freak. Then we'll go low pass filter res. Put a space in there to make it go on to the next line. Thank you. Attack. Decay, just using tab to jump between parameters. This is the sustain, and then the last one is the release. A few more things to do. Let's grab the Saturator drive, turn it to there. A few parameters in the reverb. The macro 8 will receive the dry wet. It's also going to receive the freeze. I'm going to turn the cut off. I'll explain why later. And the decay time. So as we bring up the amount of reverb with the mix, double click the header to hide them. I'll leave this one open. I get more reverb. Eventually, you'll notice when I get to the 64 value here, it turns on the freeze. I don't want it to turn on freeze to 127. So the way I'm going to do this is as follows. I'm going to go to map. Might actually color these first. My blue sky reverb, red hot drive. Anything that makes the sound grow over time, I always color green. ADSR parameters, for example. And then my yellow is always used for low pass filters. So I don't have to look so much. Easier for me to determine what I am doing. Drive is good. I might just change this to capitals drive. change this one to reverb, and adjust some of these settings. So with reverb, like I said, I didn't want this to come on, the freeze to come on until it gets to 127. So now it's not even up to 126. We don't see the freeze come on, this little parameter here. I will hide this away so you can see it. And then when it gets to 127, it comes on, and that allows me to freeze and add things. If I have the cut parameter enabled, no matter what I do, if I play new notes, you can see MIDI notes coming in there. It's not going to add to the reverb freeze parameter, the buffer that's been frozen. So instead, I take it off and then I can. So I'm going to leave that off, and I'm going to leave this on flat, which bypasses the input filtering on any new sound coming into the reverb only when it's in freeze mode. So I'll leave those off. I can just go like that. You'll notice here that up until the point where I get to 127, we got modulation or variation occurring to those, both parameters. I don't want this to be quite as long, so the way I go about that is map. I look for my blue decay time. I want my decay time to vary from 2 seconds to about maybe 20 seconds. I want the dry wet to be as it is there. And I also want, I might actually set it back so that the dry wet doesn't get up quite as high, and then it just goes to freeze at the end. With the drive, I want it to vary in values from 0 dB up to 12 dB. I don't want a full 24 dB of drive, and that means that this one there, you can see it only goes to 12 dB. Reverb will only go to 70%, but it still freezes. And as I increase the dry wet, you'll notice that the decay time also increases. My sweet spot where I think I would use the reverb most of the time is probably around here, 20 to 30%. Turn the drive down a little bit. So our attack is 3 seconds. It takes us 3 seconds to get to the top of our filter sweep. It takes us 3 seconds to get from the top down to the sustain. And then when we release the key, we have 3 seconds before we hear no sound at all. With the addition of reverb, obviously. Nice sound. I think we can save that as the default string setting. Great. Let's click a new preset. This is default strings. Command R to rename. Default. And then from there, let's create a random nice addition in version 11. Just checking it's not too loud. Let's see what comes out. I'm going to create a new one there, renaming this new one. This is a lead for me. Lead dry. The dry. I think I liked it. Like that. Wonderful. Let's go and create a bass sound. Take it down a few octaves using the Z key. We want the quacking 303 style bass. There we go, a new one. There's going to be bass. Bit quacking. The filter going wah wah. There we go, quack away. Let's see what the random button comes up with next time. Nothing too dissimilar. I like this. I like that kind of. Turn the sustain down altogether. Like a quick pluck. A little bit of reverb on it, pluck verb. And you can see very quickly, using a little bit of knowledge and also random events, we can then switch between these. You can hear we've got some really nice evocative string sounds. Lots of sound design options within the rack here. So yeah, have a play with it. I'm going to leave this in the comments. You can download this directly if you want to. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.